Well, here we are yet again.
Yep.
Welcome back to Outside the Cinema, your weekly source for cult movie discussions. We are your hosts, Bill and Chris. Welcome. Thanks for being here. If you're new to the show, awesome. Like, I don't know how you found it at this point.
I know. Where are we even? I don't even know.
I mean, we're everywhere.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
We're on Spotify, which I just read the other day. Spotify is now the #1 destination for podcasts.
Really?
It finally beat out Apple because they have a large number. I mean, they've spent a ton of money bringing in big name podcasts.
Yeah.
So, but to find our show on Spotify, you literally have to type in outside the CIN before it shows up. So I'm sure we're in a lot of aggregators over there showing up for everybody.
Yeah.
But we're everywhere. We're on Apple. We're on all the streaming services and obviously on Libsyn, our own site. If you go to outsidethecinema.net, which I still pay for some reason. So outsidethecinema.net is just a redirect to our Libsyn homepage. But yeah, for some reason I still pay for that. I don't know why. I mean, I guess I could create a website for us, but like, let's
then you gotta maintain it.
No, and we've got the Patreon page.
Yeah.
Which I barely maintain as it is. So, like,
fair.
I don't think I should probably. Whatever. Anyway, so we are in the thralls of Patreon shows. So if you are a Patreon member and haven't sent us some films yet, feel free to send them. This week on the show, we are doing Howard's picks of The Spider Labyrinth and Story of a Junkie, two interesting and very different flicks that are very much in the OTC wheelhouse, which is nice. Did get a couple of emails in. We'll go over these now since it's usually easier to do it now rather than wait. Alrighty, let's see here. So yes, these are Howard's picks. And we've got David sent picks for, I believe, we could do these next week. But he also said some kind words about my upcoming colon something surgery, whatever it's called. But David said he's been listening since the dark times, BC, before Chris.
Wow.
Started doing the Patreon when I was able to do so. I've never picked anything for you guys to watch. However, I think it's about time. I figure we need a little Bert on the show. Reynolds, that is.
No.
So no Smokey and the Bandit, no Hooper, no Cannonball Run. What then? Well, an outside the cinema type film. Skullduggery.
Okay.
Didn't we do that?
I don't know. That doesn't sound familiar.
Sounds familiar to me. Skullduggery, the weirdest Bert film you will ever see, and The Last Movie Star, one of his final films.
That I've heard.
And a lot of nerd culture involved. There you go. Hope you can work them in. A Bert double feature, Bert offerings, if you will.
Bert.
And as always, if you're ever in Louisville, Kentucky, let me know. Dinner on me. I've never been to Kentucky, and I'm going to be honest. David, you seem like a wonderful gentleman. I'm not planning on going anytime soon.
I may be there.
Really?
Yeah, there's a giant screen convention coming up that's like where all the studios show off their new films for institutions and domes and stuff like that. And one night or 2 days is in Alabama, of all places. And then I think we get on a bus and go north, and we might end up in Kentucky. I'm not entirely sure.
All right. Well, we'll keep our good buddy Dave abreast of the situation.
It's not till September.
Not that I have I just have no. I don't have. I mean, unless we end up in maybe a film festival in Kentucky. But I think the furthest south we're looking at right now is Tennessee, Knoxville. I think we might be doing some screenings. But yeah, that's cool. David's been a listener for a long time. I recognized his name and email immediately when it popped up. So he's been a big friend and fan of the show for many years, and we really appreciate that. So David, next week we will do your Bert picks. We'll check into. We definitely did a film called Skullduggery at one point. Here, let me just look it up. I've got IMDb right here. I don't think it's a Bert film though. I feel like I would remember that.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen him on the show yet.
Duggery.
But it's also a name that could be used over
there's
and
an
over
83.
again.
Yeah, I think we did this one from 1983. 80s classic or a game of Dungeons and Dragons is the centerpiece of a mystery. No, that actually doesn't sound familiar.
No.
Skullduggery. That name. I feel.
Maybe it's one of
Let me
those
do some-
VHS board games you used to play.
No, probably not. Skullduggery with Burt Reynolds, though, is not on any of my lists here. So.
Okay.
Oh, no, you know what we did with Skullduggery?
No.
It was in the Halloween Throwdown.
Oh.
Like one of the very, very early ones.
Okay.
So, if I'm not mistaken, if you are a member of the Patreon, actually, let me take a look right here. And I think the in the archives, I think we have the version of it that we screened, but we've never reviewed it on the show. We probably talked about it a little bit
Right.
after the screening.
Makes sense.
But if we go into the archives here and you go into Throwdown Films folder, not 20, so 2011, we got Houseboat of Horror, Hack-O-Lantern, Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde, Demon of Paradise, Beach Girls and the Monster, Ants. So it's not that one. 2012, because I definitely recognize that poster.
Okay.
Blackenstein, Death Game, Door to Silence, Mardi Gras Massacre, Savage Weekend. It'll be like the year before. The year before I started keeping them. Blood Diner, Fade to Black, Heavy Metal Massacre, Horror Hotel. 2014. Techie.
Yeah.
Child of Glass. I bet it was 2010. I bet it was the first year.
That would make sense if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, it would. No, because I definitely recognize that poster, but it's not on my list of like watch things.
Okay.
Skullduggery, 2015.
When we watched it?
Yep,
Okay.
2015. It was in the 2015 Throwdown, so there is a cut of it that you can watch. Everyone can watch there if you're on the Patreon and you're on the OTC archives. All you got to do is go into the Throwdown Films folder and click on 2015, and it's right there. But we haven't reviewed it on the show, so
Okay.
cool. I'm actually gonna watch that version of it. See what I see how far my editing skills have come since 2015. And my guess is going to be they've come a long way.
Yeah, probably.
Most likely. All right, cool. David, thank you very much. All right, what else we got here for feedback from the fans and the friends of the show? Let's see. Is this the same thing? All right, so we have some suggestions here also from another David. Is this the same guy? No, it's different. We have a David Campbell. And he's got some Australian picks.
Okay.
Hey guys, have a couple of films for Patreon picks. Spotswood, 1992, filmed in Melbourne with Anthony Hopkins in the lead role. Also, with some early performances by some now familiar names, including Russell Crowe, Ben Mendelsohn, and Toni Collette. There's also Bruno Lawrence in this one because I seem to pick at least one film with him in it.
That sounds familiar.
He also suggests that does, the title. I definitely haven't seen it, but that title definitely sounds familiar.
Right.
1990s Death in Brunswick, also filmed in Melbourne. This one in the suburb I lived in for more than 20 years. Where to find them? Spotswood is available on Tubi currently, and Death in Brunswick is available on Brawley. Brawley is free. You just need to set up an account, but I don't know if it is region locked or not. If you cannot find a way to watch it, I will provide another film. I'm sure we could probably track it down, David. Cool. So that would be, we can do those the week after. So we've got David number one's picks of the Burt films next week. Okay. And then in 2 weeks, we'll do David C's films of Spotswood and Death in Brunswick.
All right.
Cool. I like when we can set the shows up like this. All right. And then we also got a message. I thought I had one more message in here from somebody. Oh, David also makes a suggestion. Oh, this is a first. I love this. David C. also makes a suggestion for Joe, for a series for Joe to cover. Love this. All right. Just a thought of a series Joe could cover while you are convalescing. The Lone Wolf and Cub series.
Oh, nice.
Original 6 films, and then perhaps do the Samurai Assassin film, which is parts of several of the films stitched together. So Joe is currently working his way through Wrong Turn. I think he's got a couple more, but Joe, take note. Patreon has hit you up now, which is great for you because does nothing for you. Lone Wolf and Cub. That's cool. We haven't had Joe. We usually have him do. Thank you, David, for that suggestion. Also, we usually have Joe doing horror series, so it's cool to kind of branch out from that into a martial arts series. Well, I mean, Lone Wolf and Cub is martial arts series. So cool. There we go.
Yeah,
love it. Love when we have a plan, man.
Yeah, it's good.
Love when we have a plan. All right, this week though is more important.
Well, yeah, because it's this week.
Yes, it is. It's the Big H's picks of Howard. His picks of, as we said earlier, The Spider Labyrinth, which is an Italian horror giallo-esque film, and Story of a Junkie, which is a quote-unquote documentary of a junkie living in New York City. Chris, do you have a
Let's get the junkie one out of the way.
Let's get the junkie one out of the way. Okay, that is fair. This is a film that was picked up by the Trauma team. I don't have a trailer, I don't think, here for it. Let me just check real quick and see if we've got one on YouTube. But there may be one. But I had never heard of this.
I think I've heard the title, but I never pursued it.
Yeah, I guess it sounds vaguely familiar, but I don't. It's funny because there was a time when if Trauma put their name on something, obviously they were kind of really, big on acquiring stuff. So it looks like, Vinegar Syndrome put out a version of this too.
Oh, okay.
So the version we watched was on Tubi, and it was the Trauma licensed version of it. But let's see what this trailer from Vinegar Syndrome is looking like.
Everybody has some kind of Jones here in New York City. Everybody has something that they need to do in order to get through the day.
Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stage, they just don't care. I can't take the smell, can't take the noise. Got no money to move out, I guess I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back. Junkies in the alley with the baseball bat. I tried to get away, but I couldn't get far, cause a man with a tow truck repossessed my car. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
My brother's doing fast on my mother's TV. Says she watches too much. It's just not healthy. All my children in
all right, definitely not a trailer that's helping you guys at all.
See the game or the
unless you are a fan of classic hip hop. So I'm just gonna stop that there because it's just gonna get the show demonetized.
Oh yeah.
So, Story of a Junkie, 1985. Critically acclaimed documentary from director Lech Kowalczyk of DOA, following the life and times of down and out heroin addicts in 1980s New York, starring Jeff Spacely. All these guys playing themselves: Jeff Spacely, Steven Shingles, Claude de Saubert, Eddie, and Oswaldo Vázquez and Ray. So if you look at the poster art for this, it is very much like a 1980s over-the-top painted, this is the Trauma version of the poster, of big muscly arm with like an American flag tattoo on it. It's the story of a desperate man. It's the story of a desperate society.
Yeah, no.
Story of a junkie.
I don't think so. Not the movie I watched.
Yeah. So, all right. First and foremost, this has presented itself as a documentary. And I would say this is maybe 50% at best documentary.
Yeah.
There is a very large amount of scenes that are staged in this to tell the story that they're trying to tell, which also is not really clearly given to you. The story is, yes, of a junkie. That's about it.
Yeah.
So,
at first, it reminded me of Decline of Western Civilization, but then like it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. So, as a gentleman who is a filmmaker who just made a film about addiction, I feel like I'm allowed to speak on this. So
that sounded way more sarcastic than I meant it to.
I just started putting I just put the poster up on the wall over there. So, yes, this film, what they're trying to do with this film is tell the story of, addiction in the lower classes of New York City in the 80s, which was a massive, massive problem.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying that addiction is not a problem now, because obviously I just made a movie about it. So it is still a massive issue. But this is a very different world of heroin junkies that is different than what you see today. Mostly because heroin's not really a thing anymore. Like, there isn't heroin. That's why everyone does fentanyl, because heroin is not easy to get, and if it is, it's become, from what I gather, very expensive to get actual real heroin.
Well, and dangerous too, because it's laced with fentanyl.
Well, exactly.
It's just fucked up.
It's messed up, man. Yeah, I mean, it's messed up. But this is definitely trying to tell that story of, you get your central character of John, and he's the kind of like the main driving force of the story. He's kind of a punk rock dude, wears an eye patch, skateboards. So the issue that I have is that when you're doing a documentary and you're going to cut in, scenes of stuff that you're creating to, I guess, best case scenario, they're trying to retell events that happened to him. You're doing recreations. That's the word I wanted to use. Sorry. You're doing recreations of him, like, getting, like, jumped for, somebody to steal his skateboard. You're better off, I feel like, and maybe this is just more timing and, seeing thousands of documentaries that have been released since this, of, like, really creating, like, more of, like, almost like an over the top recreation of things. Like, when you watch any true crime show, the recreations are always, like, way more over the top and, like, very much, like, given to you as a recreation. Whereas this, they're trying to make it seem like the cameraman just happened to be standing there.
Right.
When this guy rolls him over to steal his skateboard or whatever. And it's just like, well, no, that's not. That guy's going to steal that skateboard, and then he's going to steal that camera. Yeah. Like, he's probably going to take the camera first. He's not going to take the skateboard.
Yeah, the part that killed it for me is when the guy gets shot in the street and they just leave him there.
Yeah, I kind of checked out at that point. Yeah. Because I got to that point of, like, I'd seen, because the skateboard scene was before that. And this film does, like, a really good job. What it does well, it does quite well. And that is in the harsh reality of the streets of New York in the 1980s. We talk about the grindhouse era and, like, the theaters in New York City, and, like, how it was a fucking jungle. It was a war zone. Like, and
it's like a jungle.
All of that
sometimes.
Is true.
You gotta keep from going
under, man. But it is all of that is very true. Yeah. And films like this do an excellent job of depicting that. Like the scenes with the, like, he's got the heroin needle, like, hanging out of his arm, and they hold on to it for a lot longer, and we see him putting the heroin in, and then, drawing the blood back in to get more of the heroin, and then putting the needle plunger back down. And, like, stuff like that it's hard to watch, and it is uncomfortable, and that is done very well. The bad with this movie, I found, though, was that at no point did I engage or care about any of the characters.
Yeah, they made them too shitty for us to really buy into the, like, why do I have sympathy for this person that knows what they're doing is wrong, has people available to help them, but won't take the help.
Right. And then also there's the stuff where, like, we know that the guy doesn't have a job. We know that he doesn't have any money. And then he spent, like, like, we see him, like, spending money on things that, like, you wouldn't, if you were a heroin addict at this guy's level, like, you're not stopping to buy, like, you're not going to eat. You're going to buy heroin. Yeah. So it's hard. It was hard because I definitely wanted to connect with the film. And I wanted to feel something for these characters, but they're just not presented in a way that makes me want to give a shit either way.
Yeah, because I mean, this movie basically is like, we need to help these people, isn't it? That's what they're trying to say.
I feel like that's the whole overall point.
Yeah, I mean, they are people and they deserve help, but this movie, you're right, it doesn't do anybody any favors. It doesn't help anything.
Yeah.
Because obviously nothing happened because like the drug problem's still there. So
right. And you don't really get much of a resolution in this, I felt, right?
I think you're right. But I think that's the point, is that it's just not going to end. Maybe.
Yeah. So, and now they know, I know I kind of like rung them up here for, including the recreations from Gringo's life.
Yeah.
As like, they don't, I mean, it's not like, they didn't try to pass it off as real. Like, they said, we recreated, but they put it into the film as if it was real.
Right.
And one of the things I read too was, Lloyd Kaufman was like, "Oh, this is a more effective film about drug use than Trainspotting," and no, I don't think so.
I mean, for him, maybe, but in general, no, because like I will not watch Trainspotting because I don't need to see that shit. I could watch this over and over again. Not going to, but I could.
No, right? Yeah, exactly. So, man, it's like I want to say better things about it because I thought it was effective. It was grimy and it was dirty and it was dark. And despite being a low budget film, obviously shot, on very like low budget for the 80s. So it's dark, but it worked for the way it looked. I just felt like the characters, they had to find a better through line.
Yeah.
To make it catch for me.
Like if you're doing a thing about addiction, like you take Sid and Nancy, for example, you got to build up your character. You got to give a shit about Sid in the first place to see what's going on and care about it. And you do to a point with him, which is exactly, I think, the way it should be. But here it's just like he has no redeeming qualities as a movie character.
Right.
Which, that makes it almost impossible to root for them. I don't know. It's just a day in the life kind of thing. It's not even like stuff happens to him or anything.
Well, yeah, and that's the whole thing too, was like I kept expecting, like usually when you see films about addiction that are presented, more narratively like this, like there's like a level of desperation that keeps getting amped up.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that with this. Right. I mean, yeah, he did some stuff, but like we didn't get the scenes of the breaking into a house and like accidentally murdering a family or like you know what I mean? You know what I mean though? Like or like he breaks into a house and gets arrested for breaking and entering because he was trying to steal jewelry to sell for drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
with this kind of movie, you definitely want to have some kind of and this is it's going to be weird for me to use this phrase, but a come to Jesus moment where all of a sudden he's like, what the fuck am I doing? And then if he tries, you can root for him, but he doesn't try. I mean, not that that's what the movie's advertising either, but yeah, all the stuff that happened, I'm like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
That was about it.
Yeah. 100%. All right, let's just grade this, man. All right. All right, Chris, do you recommend and what is your grade for Story of a Junkie?
I don't think I'm going to recommend it because I don't think it really serves a purpose as what it's trying to do. I think it's hell, if anything, it might, make somebody look at it and go, "Okay, I'll try that." You don't want that. There are some drugs that are, harmless to the most. Not as harmful as heroin is what I'm saying. Not harmless.
Right.
But Jesus Christ. They didn't make it appealing, which is good, but they also didn't really steer you away from it. It's more of a this happens, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the ultimate place you want to be with a documentary, isn't it? Just like, here you go, look. I don't know. I don't know.
No, I get where you're coming from for sure.
So as a documentary showcasing like what life in the streets literally was like back then, I mean, yeah, okay, it's a good snapshot of the time period, but I think as a narrative trying to tell us something, it just falls off. So I can't really shit on it, but I can't really praise it. So I'm going to go in the middle with a C.
Yeah, man. I hate to agree with you.
No, you don't.
But I'm going to. And almost everything you said. I think it's presentation. Do I recommend it? If you are a big fan of slice of life documentaries and want to see New York in the 1980s and how gross it is, by all means, then yeah, check it out. But I don't think it necessarily offers much. Like, if you're looking for a film that's going to show you the life of excess and stuff, like you mentioned, Decline of Western Civilization.
Yeah.
The part 2, the Metal Years, like those scenes of Chris Holmes just chugging vodka in the pool and in his leather pants, like way more effective for like, whoa.
Yeah, because we also have the ability of being in the future and knowing what happens to people after.
Right, yeah. So I think its presentation in terms of like New York and the griminess, I think that is very good. I think some of the photography and the cinematography in it is very good. Grungy, grimy, dirty, works. But the lack of the driven narrative in it is where I think it hurts a little bit. So I will go a C-, a little bit lower than you, but not necessarily very different at all.
Okay.
So there you have it. That is Story of a Junkie, available to watch on Tubi, and I think it's on Amazon Prime too. It's one of those ones that's been licensed a whole bunch of places, so you can check it out.
Yep.
Coming up next, 1988's Spider Labyrinth. This was released by Severin a few years back, or maybe recently re-released by Severin. I do think I have a trailer here, though.
I am the urn that belongs to the weavers. The great cobweb is closing every passage. It's a labyrinth with no way out.
We're studying an ancient religion, different peoples on opposite sides of the world who worship the same gods.
Doesn't sound like a very interesting subject.
They're invading my mind. I can't go on.
Put it away quickly. This affair is extremely dangerous.
You have to understand how important it is.
Genevieve? Genevieve, that's her name.
No one must ever know. The names of the gods must never be revealed. You have been chosen, Alan.
All right, Spider Labyrinth, 1988, late in the game Italian horror with a very specific giallo feel. Original title, Il Nido del Ragagno, starring Roland Wybenga, Paolo Rinaldi, Margherita von Kraus, and Claudia Mazzil. This is directed by Gianfranco Gianni. I don't know much of his stuff, man.
No.
Looking here.
No, and it's apparently this is like one of those hidden gem kind of things.
Yeah, recently kind of rediscovered. This was his first thing that he directed, and he did a series called Valentina, or he did this. He was like wrote the story or something like that. So it's interesting because usually a lot of these guys, these Italian directors, usually do a run of films.
Yeah,
and this guy just didn't really. But yeah, this is a fairly, I guess, kind of like newly rediscovered one. A lot of the stuff from the 80s, that time period is kind of like getting its resurgence now, where like when we first started the show, it was all about the 70s stuff.
Right.
So, you know, it's an Italian film. It was filmed in Budapest. And this is an odd one, man. This is a weird movie.
Yeah, but I think it's weird in a pretty good way.
I'm gonna agree with you there. Okay. At least to start. So why don't you start kind of maybe giving the
oh Jesus, okay,
the run here then, and then I will chime in.
So this starts off like Indiana Jones with a professor who is sent somewhere to do something, and that's where the similarities end. They got a bunch of people looking and working on this thing called the Intextus, and he's sent to find out. Oh shit! This is in the Mouth of Madness. He is sent out to find one of the authors and figure out what's going on, and he is all of a sudden pulled into a completely different world and pretty fucked.
Yeah, there's actually some. It's not like a Lovecraft story, but I feel like there's some Lovecraft inspiration.
Oh, there is. There's a little bit of Innsmouth going on when all of the townspeople try to break into the hotel, and you got your mysterious cult. Which could be Dagon's cult. I mean, it definitely doesn't go cosmic horror with the whole thing, but story elements have been taken, which I think works really well in this, because what you have is a small town against the outsider. So it's fish out of water, stranger in a strange land, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And that's where your tension comes from, because you like the main guy. He's pretty okay in the grand scheme of things. And you have the one person in the village that is going to help him. And I'll leave that exactly the way I said it. And then everybody...
she's going to help him, all right.
Yeah. Then everybody is like sort of passive-aggressively against him, until it becomes overt because he gets too far.
Yeah.
I guess that
there's definitely a heavy Argento vibe going on, especially in the kind of the front half of this, where I get that like giallo-esque feel, but also like you can tell they give you enough to know that there's definitely some supernatural stuff going on early. This is not going to be just like murder mystery.
Right.
So it definitely has that Suspiria deep red feel going on.
It's even got a little bit of that other one that we watched with the immortal hippie that went and ate the people in the beginning of the movie.
Oh yeah, I don't remember what that was called.
There was a stork. I remember that. I don't remember. I get that, but I remember the movie.
Yes. So yeah, it is very much stranger comes to town, starts doing some digging. He meets with the guy that wrote the other professor that wrote the stuff. He mysteriously dies, and they find him like wrapped in like spider webs hanging from the ceiling or whatever. And that's kind of you're off and running. Then that's where your giallo elements come from, and you also have a black gloved killer, not leather gloves this time, just cotton. Who is actually given to you pretty early on. You see this person and you realize, okay, they're not like your normal human. There's something else going on here. And there's a lot of the callbacks to the spiders. This opening scene in the movie is these two young kids that are playing like hide and seek and stuff. And one kid gets locked into the cupboard to Narnia, and there's a spider in there. And that kind of like, we're led to believe that is the professor as a child, but it's never really clearly stated that way. But they kind of hold your hand there to kind of give you that. So, which is why he's got not like, he doesn't have like a phobia of spiders, but like he's definitely like weirded out by them.
Well, that makes sense because they're giving him the biggest tarantulas, you know, in that film. But there is a really nicely done bunch of stop motion for the
really
spiders.
Not bad. Yeah, really not bad.
Because at first I'm like, that spider moves weird, so I thought it was a real spider at first that was like drunk or something. But it's just that much off that you can eventually tell it's animated. But it took a little bit. It's a very good spider model. It's got all the hair that it should. It looked good. I was impressed.
Yeah, there were some really good looking things in this in terms of its cinematography. And like, there's this great murder scene that happens with one of the hotel workers, and she's like being chased, and she's stumbling through all these hanging bed sheets that are hanging. And there's a great scene where she's pressing her body against one of the sheets, and you know how like when you kind of like press your body against a sheet, like you get the outline of the body, and she gets stabbed, and you get the blood. So she's pushing her way through the sheet. The only issue, though, is that she's pushing into the sheet and she's stabbed on the other side of it.
Uh-huh.
So it wouldn't make sense, but they had to do that for the effect to get the blood to spread on the sheet and stuff. But it looked really cool.
Oh, yeah.
And like I was like, yeah, well, that doesn't make any sense because she wouldn't be pushing into being stabbed. She would be pulling away. But it looked cool enough that I was kind of like, all right, that's fine, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, if it looks neat and it doesn't really affect the storytelling, I'll go with a cool shot. But there are limits. I won't get into them, but I have my limits for what a cool shot can do in a movie and how it breaks, you know,
for sure,
your rules. This doesn't break any rules really. It's just fine. It's fine.
So yeah, the story kind of builds itself up. We kind of get like a spider cult type thing, but there's a supernatural element to it. The only thing I actually really quite enjoyed this, but the only thing that I didn't really like was the very like common ending of it, like the way it actually ends.
Okay.
Not so much that it made me not like the film, but I was just kind of like, I've seen this before.
Yeah, do you think they went safe with the end just to like make sure it was accessible to people since the rest of it's kind of weird?
They may have, but at the same time I was kind of like, you went weird, man, just roll with it.
Yeah.
Like, don't give in at the end where like it's exactly what you would expect,
right,
you know?
Right.
So, but I mean, overall, I felt like this film did a really good job. Like there was that maid scene is great. The spider lady or spider woman, like the way they kind of had her move and had her like the strength that she had. And,
yeah.
All worked very well, I thought. I like the weird police detective too. So the professor gets killed, and the visiting professor is like, "Well, I was just here," and they're like, "Well, all right, come with us." And they like they don't know who this guy is, but they like bring him into the crime scene and like show him the body hanging from the ceiling. Where I'm like, man, these police are terrible at their job.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, that almost broke it for me, but not enough. Close though.
What else am I missing here? There was a couple other things I wanted to bring up. Shit. This is why I should take notes. What about you? Was there any what else for you?
There is a scene where there's an open wound and a spider crawls into it. And that bothered me.
Oh, yeah.
So good for you guys. But again, fuck that movie because now it unlocked some kind of weird new fear for me. So thanks a lot. I don't know, just the way it moved and went in, like with it being stop motion, it doesn't look natural to start with. And then it's doing something you don't want it to do. So it almost feels like it has a little bit of intelligence to it. And it just didn't like it. Not at all.
Yeah, it was creep. It makes your skin stand up or whatever.
I did like the misdirect with who the crazy demon woman type thing was.
Oh yeah, that worked.
Yeah, because
that worked.
When the final reveal for that happened, I'm like, oh yeah. I wasn't mad at it because it did it really well.
Yeah, and the other thing this film did well that a lot of other Italian films from this time period, especially a lot of the giallos, is that like they started to cram other story points into this, and they ended up, for the most part, all kind of making sense with the end game that they were playing. Where, I mean, we've seen so many Italian films where they start to add characters and they add story elements that just they bring them up and then never revisit them.
Yeah,
I mean, there was stuff in this they didn't revisit, but it all made sense in the ending when you kind of found out, you get the reveal of exactly kind of what's going on. Which was nice because a lot of Italian films tend to not do that. So
yeah, more than I would care to ever watch again.
With that said, all right, Chris, do you recommend, and what is your grade for The Spider Labyrinth? Sorry,
I am going to recommend this. It was, I'm not going to say a lot of fun, but it was more fun than most of the cut and paste type of giallos that we got going. It was a little weirder. Got your hints of supernatural, which is good. It was just all around different enough that it kept me pretty interested, which is a challenge now.
Absolutely.
Especially with Italian movies where like this type of thing has been done 6 dozen times and we've watched them all. So
right.
In order for something to keep my attention, it's got to bring something different. And this one did. It brought something different enough, and I was pretty happy with it. So I'm going to give it a B+.
B+, okay. Yeah. Doling out the big grades.
Yeah, I was happy with this one.
Yeah, I enjoyed just about everything. I think the only really thing that I didn't like was the derivative ending that we get that we've seen a million times. But it wasn't so bad that it hurt the rest of the film. I thought the atmosphere that they built was great. It definitely felt very Argento-esque. I think their special effects work with the stop motion I thought was top notch. Score was pretty good too, because I think that's one of those things where like a lot of these films, the score gets remembered because of how bad it is.
Yeah. I don't remember the score, so it must have been all right.
Which means it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the Budapest scenery is brought into like almost like a character, and like there's a great scene where he's the professor guy is searching for something, and he keeps getting these bad directions, and like he's just kind of like roaming the streets and driving around the streets of Budapest, and it worked really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, all in all, I thought this was great. I'm not gonna go quite as high as you, but I'm gonna go with a B. I really enjoyed it. This was one that I'm glad that we were able to, somebody was able to give us, because I'm not sure if I would have caught up with it.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing that it was suggested by Howard. So, yeah, B and a B+ from us. I'd say that's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Moving on swiftly, we have Joe covering another one of the Wrong Turn films this week. Let's see what he has to say.
Well, hello, Bill. Hello, Chris, and hello, OTC Nation. Your boy Joe here, and this week Bill took me to Bulgaria, where it's apparently cheaper to shoot a film than it is in West Virginia. So he made me watch Wrong Turn 3, Left for Dead. I just had a good laugh before I even started the movie. Being a straight-to-video film itself, of course the trailers on the DVD are for other straight-to-video features. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely astounding to me that when John Cena probably said, "The Marine 2? Nah, homie, I'm good," they looked around the locker room and found the most bland, milquetoast, nepotism hire, I guess charisma really isn't genetic, motherfucker they could find, and went, "Yep, there's our Marine 2 right there." And Ted DiBiase Jr. said, "You know I can hear you, right?" I mean, listen, if The Miz has to take over to save your franchise, what are we doing here? Good shit, pal. Transitions are always awkward, right? And not just when I try to go from one thought to another. This was released straight to video in 2009. Video stores, for the most part, didn't even really exist anymore in 2009. I mean, sure, family video. If you're a fellow Midwesterner, it was still hanging around, but by that point, you have to figure they only existed as a tax write-off. Like, they were propping up their business by selling CBD products before it was cool and, everywhere. And I'm sure the porn room accounted for the rest of the meager profits.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So until streaming really took hold of the market, straight-to-video at that time pretty much meant we're just going to ship crate upon crate upon crate of these discs to Walmarts around the nation and claim that we've sold millions of copies. Because it wouldn't be America unless you mold the truth like silly putty so you can look like a captain of industry when you're really just a used car salesman with an IQ smaller than the video store profits in 2009, but an ego bigger than video store profits in 1988. And then you probably run for president. Let's watch a movie, huh? We open on a bunch of disposables rafting down a river, and they look like they're having a blast. And I was almost going to dunk on this film for shooting in Bulgaria instead of actually shooting in West Virginia, which I'm sure can't be that expensive. I mean, it's West Virginia. West Virginia. But having seen that state, I can't do it. It looks like West Virginia in Bulgaria. It really does.
Huh.
I'm sure they probably even have meth in Bulgaria, too.
Obviously.
Two of the kids are about to get frisky, and listen. There are plenty of things that can go wrong when you grab a boob. But rarely do you expect the grabby to be shot through the back with an arrow, impaling your hand to the aforementioned boob. Like, that would be like, hey, let me turn on the water faucet and get a cool drink, and beans, it's not water, it's hydrochloric acid.
Oh, no.
Like, sure, it could happen. You just never expect it to happen. Anyway, they're all dead. Our main story here is a prison bus transferring some dangerous fellas, including a Mexican cartel leader who's like obviously the main big bad guy. Because of this, the bus is taking a different route than what is written down for fear of being like attacked or hijacked or whatnot.
Who is he, Magneto?
So instead of Con Air, it's like Con Ground? Con Street? Con Rural Highway? I don't know. Your first clue that this wasn't actually filmed in West Virginia is that the prison they transfer these guys from looks like a structurally sound building with working facilities.
Oh, fair enough.
Look up that lawsuit. Woof. Spoiler alert, the trip goes about as well as a vacation with the Griswolds.
Shocking turn of
The
events.
cannibals send the bus down a hillside, and now the inmates are in charge as they outnumber the guards, and boy, where have we seen this story before? And it's all about as original as two sitcom roommates dividing the apartment with like a string or tape, but in the end, they learn why they were besties in the first place.
Hells yeah, perfect.
Troy and
I
Abed in
am
the morning.
enjoying the skinhead inmate, though. Not only is he a dead ringer for Nikita Koloff, for you early WCW fans, but
Sick.
he delivers all of his lines like this.
Obviously.
Like he grew up only being allowed to watch old Clint Eastwood movies.
Hot.
I'm into it.
The cartel guy is thoroughly in charge, and while traipsing through the deciduous forests of Greenbrier County, they come across an old armored car from like 40 years ago and grab bags of cash.
What?
Which does slow them down significantly while they're trying to both make their way back to civilization and survive being hunted by cannibals. But hey, there's cash. I get it.
That feels
I'd love
like
to tell you
the
rest of
devil's
the
trick.
story. I mean, shit, I'd love it if there was more story than people carrying bags through the woods and yelling at each other, but that's what they chose to focus on. Like, 2/3 of this movie is just these hapless fucks walking and arguing and not dying in interesting ways. I'll give them this. On the rare occasion when someone does get 86'd here, it is cool and interesting. There's some good kills. But it happens
not enough of them,
about as
apparently.
often as I wake up without my knee and hip aching from apron bumps. Years and years of apron bumps.
Hardest part of the ring.
It's a rare bird indeed. There's more walking and talking here than in the Lord of the Rings trilogy combined.
No.
I had more fun browsing for a new microwave online than I did watching this movie. Like, I have a big ass pile of gravel to move later when I'm done with this, and I'm actually looking forward to that rather than finishing this movie. Like, this movie this movie is as dry as Ben Shapiro's wife.
Oh.
I started this being pretty cool about it not being good. Like, I thought, like, okay, this isn't good, but it's got to get better, and it didn't. Sort of did near the end. But it's taking so long that I'm starting to get agitated. Like, the cannibal family features as much in this movie as Bruce the Shark did in the original Jaws. Except in that movie, the rest of the story was compelling and well-written and acted and was just good.
And about the shark.
This movie makes me want to... Okay. Side note here. This is future Joe from after I wrote this. I was going to dunk on the director, but he died kind of young. And the article I read makes him sound like he was a really, really, really good dude. So I'm not gonna. Good. I want to, but I'm not gonna. I guess they kind of brought it up at the end. Like they brought the movie kind of, saves itself a little bit towards the end in the big confrontation, and there's some good gore, and the good guys win, but boy, I sure didn't. Here's the thing. The good, I've seen worse. Despite being bad, the kills were good. Just too few and far between. Bottom line, we have all seen way worse than this movie. This is just what I had to watch today. The bad, what should have been like 15 to 20 minutes of setup and then like an hour and 15 minutes of nonstop like survival, thrill ride, chase and kill and all sorts of cool shit. It was an hour of walking and talking and people yelling at each other, which I don't like to watch, and maybe 15 minutes of chase and kill. That's it. I don't know. Moving on. I got stuff to do. Wrong Turn 3 gets a C-. Hopefully they pull this thing out of its nosedive with Wrong Turn 4, Bloody Beginnings. I'll find out next week if it's just bloody awful. Until then, be good, everyone.
Can you hear how nuts bark is going in the other room?
Yeah, is there mail getting delivered or something?
I'm assuming maybe UPS dropped something off or something because that was like another level.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Joe, very much. Appreciate it. All right. Now we got to go to Scott, right?
Yeah, usually we do that.
Yeah. All right. Let me find it. Reverend Scott. There it is. He was very upset that the show was late last week. And guess what? It's late this week, too. So, they recently introduced all the AI show notes, which we started using, which I'm going to be honest, they're not great.
No.
Oh, that reminds me. This is Holy Shit with Reverend Scott, the segment reviewing Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now maybe the AI will actually mention me this week. Probably not.
We will see, though, won't we?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
With Reverend Scott.
You get in my way, I'm going to fucking eat you.
Hey there, Bill and Chris. This is Reverend Scott.
So, hey, look at that little dude.
Hey, I'm not, well, compared to you, I guess. Oh, well, do you remember last week when I said I was monkeying around at the theater? But this time, it wasn't me that was monkeying around at the theater. But we'll circle on back to that after I pass out some piping hot judgment. Starting with...
Hard to Be a God, 1989.
Again? At least it's not the Russian one this time.
We had covered the very long, bleak, dark, dirty I think it was 2014 version.
Yeah.
It was a Russian-made version. It's a Russian novel of the story Hard to Be a God.
Yeah. And that version gives you dysentery when you watch it.
That's how I died on the Oregon Trail.
The other one is a better, film.
It's better made, but that doesn't always mean that it's the better.
For your sake, I hope so. So if I recall, you got this advanced guy visiting a medieval religious zealot planet just to mock them. That sound about right?
Well, they're not on Earth.
Yeah.
So they're aliens.
But the human isn't on Earth either.
Yes, that's how it works. So anyway, Ramada, or whatever hotel this guy is our advanced man, and he's gonna go around recording things without consent.
And there's a camera surgically installed in his eye, like VHS.
At least he's not a stuck-up douche, am I right?
Ramada comes in as a high-class, well-educated man.
Looking like Christopher Lambert from fucking Mortal Kombat.
Or any number of the Highlander characters.
Yeah, or many elder wise ones from Shaw Brothers films.
Also, potentially Battleship Earth, just without the large foreheads.
You ruined it.
I did. That's what I'm here for.
Oops. Never mind then. Anything else you'd like me to know about this one?
This feels like 1989.
Gee, I wonder why. I give Hard to Be a God a C+, and the review gets a B+. Congrats. But what about
Brian and Charles?
Okay, tell me about it.
Kind of oddball comedy / dramedy.
It's a lot like that one with the dude that loved the trains.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
We don't really know who Brian is. We just know that he is this inventor who's kind of sad and lonely at home and, makes all these like ridiculous inventions.
I can tell you this much. This is the weird guy from that Ricky Gervais show Afterlife and from that Ricky Gervais show Derek, both on Netflix. And both are amazing and funny and very sad too. And if you haven't seen them, do that immediately. After this segment's over, but immediately. David Earl is hilarious and a scumbag in both of them, basically. So anyway, Brian and Charles.
A lot of stuff in this movie doesn't make any sense, so that's kind of like, all right, you're just going to go with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like that he has a boxy robot walking around with him.
When people do see him, nobody really seems all that fazed by it.
No.
So for that alone, I'm authorized to give Brian and Charles an A-. And the review gets a C- because you spelled Charles with 2 R's in the episode title last week.
So angry.
Yeah.
Speaking of angry,
that's on me.
I bet you were mad I didn't talk about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes last week. But fear not, this week I'm going to talk about the Planet of the Kingdom of the Apes because I saw Ape Planet Kingdom in IMAX, baby. And I know what you're going to say already.
You can't give a gun to a monkey in Planet of the Apes.
Well, I didn't know what you were going to say then, but I am going to preface this review with, I was a bit tired, and I saw this at 10 p.m., and it's 2.5 hours long. That being said, I was pretty pumped to see this, at least until I got sleepy. The first of the 3 movies of the Planet of the Apes were all very good. I'm especially a fan of War for the Planet of the Apes. Not sure why, I just thought it was cool. But all those starred Caesar, and the Kingdom does not. In fact, it follows a young chimp named Noah, but it's spelled weird without an H. And this is many generations after Caesar's death.
It's actually kind of weird.
A clan of apes that steals eagle eggs and raises them as their own pets and protectors and just kind of a cool thing to have on your arm. And that sounds cool until a rival clan of very not nice apes led by a gorilla just ransacks their whole village and burns it down. That was shitty. Now Noah, with the help of an orangutan that knows a lot about saying exposition and a girl that can actually talk somehow when most humans can't, must find this kidnapped clan and stop the rival clan leader Proximus, who is very bad.
And I didn't like him. I didn't want him to succeed. I didn't care.
Proximus has one obsession, to break into a giant cement human bunker potentially filled with human weapons. And the human girl does not want this to happen, and neither does Noah, because like a wise man once said,
you can't give a gun to a monkey in Planet of the Apes.
So I'm not gonna lie, I had a hard time staying awake in the middle of this movie. Mainly because the orangutan just wouldn't shut the fuck up. Although I did like him a lot, don't get me wrong. But I don't think it's the movie's fault exactly. It was mainly me. So, I want to say that I at least stayed awake for like 2 hours and 15 minutes of it.
Really good job. You get an A for effort.
That being said, I still felt like this movie's about like 20 minutes too long. When there is action, the action is riveting. Also, I'm pretty sure this was mainly filmed in real locations, forests, jungles, and whatnot.
Lush, green, beautiful, gorgeous.
And the CGI in this was, I don't know a better word, it was astonishing. Like, there were legitimately times that it took me out of the movie. I just started thinking about, what the fuck? How does this look so, the snow on the monkey fur, it is, like my jaw was on the fucking floor. It is like distractingly good. And especially with this, how well it blends in these CGI characters with live humans on the screen. I think Weta did this, and it's truly remarkable. There's a few twists in the plot near the end, and of course, they're set up for a sequel and whatnot. I just guess it rubbed me the wrong way that we abandoned the time of Caesar completely, and we're left with legends and a cult following. Our main character didn't even really believe Caesar existed.
I was going to say that sounds familiar, but then my brain said, nah, you never heard of that.
I do say I enjoyed this, though. I'm going to recommend this, especially if you've seen the last three or just love incredibly amazing visual effects. I do owe it a rewatch sometime. So I'm going to give Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes of the grade of B. But that may improve on the next watch. Possibly why I stay awake the entire runtime.
I feel like this is a more enjoyable experience.
Well, much like the title of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, this has gone on for far too long, so I better get going. Besides, the more things I say, the more dangerous this gets.
You could just say one wrong thing and be killed.
Right.
So until the next wrong thing, peace and love, guys. Outside the cinema, going on for 16 years and counting.
It's good. It's not great. And it has aged kind of poorly.
You get a glimmer of hope that maybe what they're doing is done with the best intentions, even though it might not work out.
Yeah. All right, well, there you have it. Kind of quick show this week.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that because I always have to pee at the end of the show, so it's good timing. Hey, join the Patreon, patreon.com/outside the cinema. Make some suggestions. We got the next couple weeks shows planned and ready to go, but we're always looking for your picks. Go to our Facebook group. Just search Outside the Cinema on Facebook. You can follow Chris and I on Instagram at OTCBill and at Cthulhu. That's about it, man.
Yeah.
Cool. So, hope everyone's having a good week. They're enjoying themselves, and we will talk to you very soon. We promise.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.